afternoon, everyone. Welcome to Eady Associates and the Empowerment Institute. We're going to talk about some things this afternoon that if you listen carefully, and you follow what we're teaching, will change your life completely in a very, very positive direction. A lot of us don't seem to understand that the basis of everything that we do is about the universal spiritual laws that God put on this earth. And if he put them here to control the earth, they also control us. We don't seem to understand that if we follow those, we're going to have a modicum of success. It does not matter what our religious faith is all about. The laws work. Just for example, gravity, okay? Gravity is a law. You can be Christian, you can be Jew, you can be Muslim, you can be Buddha, you can be anything you want, but if all of us were to climb on the top of this roof and jump off, no matter what that is, all of us are coming down. And what supersedes the law of gravity? The law of thrust and lift. As man discovered that, he began to fly. Thrust and lift. So we're going to talk about that. But before we even get into that, let us bow our heads for a moment. Father God, we thank you and praise you. We love you and we adore you. We thank you, Father, for what you've given us to teach. Lord, we ask that you'll give us the unction to say and to do those things that need to be said. We ask, Lord God, that you would bless each and every person here and those that are coming. Father, we just ask that you would be in our midst and rise up big in us, that we would listen so that our heart can receive what you're giving us to teach. We ask this in Jesus' name, amen. Now let me just start off by saying this. So everybody is clear. I'm not here, and we don't teach to convert anybody into Christianity. We don't teach to convert anyone into Islam, into Judaism, into Buddhism. The law is for everybody. I just make sure I'm very clear who I am. But everything that I say applies to all of us. It doesn't matter what. So I give thanks to what I believe. Others may give thanks to what they believe. And there's no criticism of that in any form or fashion. So I want everyone to understand. But let's just understand, if we're not about business in this country and around this world, we're just not about anything. It's sad that we're running around talking about everything and doing everything except what we are supposed to do. I wrote an article a couple of weeks ago, and one of the questions I raised in that article was, we were brought to this country for the sole purpose of building an economy for someone else. That was the sole purpose. There was no other purpose, with capitalism being the ideological philosophy. Now, interestingly enough, and we all know that's true, but interestingly enough, our organizations don't seem to focus on economics. We put everything else first. We talk about the social issues of the day. We talk about the political issues of the day. We talk about all of this, the educational issues of the day. And make no mistake about it, they're all important. But they're not important to the extent that you don't deal with economics. After you deal with the Creator, first and foremost in your life, you're dealing with economics. For those that are Christians, they don't even understand that Jesus was about economics. If they go back and study everything that he taught, they would see that was economics. Nothing is going to take place without us dealing with that. And so you're clear, I use economics, money, all of that in the same vein. You're not going anywhere. We were not brought to this country to deal with social issues. We were not brought to this country to deal with political issues. Now, as part of the society, social and political issues are up front, so we have to deal with them. But it's about economics first and foremost, folks. It's not about anything else. It's about our economy. And we have got to learn as we watch and we look in this society particularly, that people all around us are building an economy. People who just got to this country yesterday they're building an economy. We can take a look at whether it's the Koreans, whom we've had a fight with some time ago. We had wars. The Vietnamese. We can take a look at the Arab folks in this country, the Pakistanians. You can find neighborhoods where they're building an economy. Why is it black people whose foreparents built the country and we're not building anything? When are we going to deal with serious issues and serious questions as to how we are going to be empowered? We don't seem to want to deal with them. Why, I do not know. Or maybe I do know, and we're going to deal with that. Okay? Because I'm going to put this up front. It's about fear. It's about fear, and we will talk later about that. Okay? But we don't seem to want to get involved in other than those things that we perceive as safe, and then we're not going to be attacked. And I'm always raising the question with brothers and sisters about, well, what are you teaching your children? If you're not teaching them that they have got to be about the business of building an economy, which means they're going to be challenging an existing system worldwide, and therefore they're not going to be liked very much, then what do you teach them? What are you going to teach them? Because we all know that the jails are full of us. We can all go upstate New York, for example. The public school system is the feeder system for the jails in New York State and around this country. And who's in the jails? People who look like us. New York State is what? Maybe 13% black? But 87% of the jails are black, meaning the population within the jail. They're black. Why? We don't have an economy, folks. So we're dependent when we graduate from college or high school or whatever. We are dependent upon someone else to provide jobs for us and for our children. Something's very, very wrong with that. We don't have an economy. We don't build businesses. And when those of us that do begin to build a business and you come under attack, everybody else runs from you. Well, let me say, you're never going to be empowered. Yes, we must go to college. Yes, we must. That's basic now. That's just plain basic. I'm very concerned is as we go to school, where we're going to work when we get out of school. Or do we come out and give all of our talents to people that don't look like us? We've got some thinking to do and we've got some work to do. Because in this society, we must be about the business of building institutions. Institutions, that's money, that's power. That's what institutions are all about. So what we're doing in the Empowerment Institute is we're going to teach how this is done. Today, you're getting one session. We do the Empowerment Institute about 6 sessions, equaling about 12 to 15 hours. So this is just the opening. For those who want to get more, they'll be registering for the Empowerment Institute. But so they'll understand about business building. What we do, in addition to teaching, we're going to get in a moment, some of our universal spiritual laws that are very, very basic to institution building. Then we bring in black business people. Later on, you will have a brother by the name of Milton Alamati, who is the publisher of the Black Star News, and he's going to share some things with you as well. Okay? About building business and what that is about. But we've got to understand, even when whites build buildings, I don't care how we criticize them, or I don't care what we say about them, they have, whether they got lucky or not, they have tapped into certain universal spiritual laws. And they may not even know it. They may not even know it. One of the things I always say, though, about the white community is that understanding who God Almighty is, He's omniscient, He's omnipresent, and we understand that He's the only one that is all things to all people. Now, one of the things that whites did white people made God to them look like them. Hear me clearly. White said God looked like us. And then, of course, they superimposed that on black people. And black people believe, too, that God looked like white people. Okay? That's what blacks believe, because that's what whites put out there. If God is omniscient and omnipotent and omnipresent, but if God is omnipotent, God looks like everybody. You're following me? God looks like you. God made us all. So God looks like everyone. Whatever creator you are serving or you believe in, there's no just one God that looks white, black, green, or red. But God can do that. God is sovereign, so God can do all of that. But when white people did that, again, what did they do? They gave themselves something to stand on and to be proud of. And when they impose that on us, you know, it makes us begin to wonder, like I used to do as a kid growing up in the South, and behind the pulpit all the time was a white Jesus with blonde hair. And I'm wondering, how could this be God when he's kicking my you-know-what every day? So I stopped going to church, because something didn't make sense with this. And believe me, they still have that in churches. About 3 years ago, at a family reunion in the church we worshiped in that Sunday morning, and it was a new church. There was a white Jesus behind the pulpit with blonde hair. Now, you question the minister about it, and the minister says, well, it doesn't mean nothing. Yes, it does. Because it's just like buying Tide and Cheer and all of that. We buy it because we see it on TV. One of you in this room could invent something, a detergent, that's just as good or better than Tide, and the rest of us are not going to buy it because we didn't see it on TV. Am I correct? Same thing with God. So when we begin to understand that, hey, God looks like me. Now, God looks like, look, he's red or whatever to the red man. He's black to the black man. He can be all of it. Or basically has no color at all, if you want to go with that. But when you make your creator look like you, you've got a lot to stand on. Then when you pray, you're praying to, hey, I know what's happening now. But if you're praying like when I was growing up, and every time I'm praying, I see a white man flash in front of me, I didn't see no chances of all of my prayer ever being answered. Let's understand what we're saying. So what we're talking about now, we need to then understand, what is it God put on this earth that we all must understand? What are the laws? What are the principles? How do we operate by them? Those that go to church every Sunday, do we really understand what is happening? Or we go to church and we feel good and we don't put anything else into practice other than the fact that we feel good while we're there, and then we leave. And the rest of the day or the rest of the week, you know, we feel good. Most times we don't even understand what the pastor said. But we felt good for those couple of hours while we were there. Instead of understanding the principles and the laws, if the pastor is teaching them, hopefully the pastor is teaching, and then putting them into practice in your life, because that's what's going to make success. Before we go any further, there's something that I want all of you to take a look at, that you have a package. I want you to open that package up, and I want you to look in the back of your package, the one with the black border on top. I want you to look in the back, and we're going to start with this because we're going to talk about some spiritual stuff. But first, I want you to go to the last page. Does everyone have a package? Yes. I want you to go to the last page of what true success means. You have it. So at some point, of course, you read that. But let's talk about success in the natural and success in the spirit realm. Success in the natural and success in the spirit realm. Okay? When we talk about success in the spirit realm, and some of you in here are very familiar with this, if not all of you, we remember the time clearly when our parents, the whole purpose of what our parents wanted to accomplish, our parents wanted to get a nice car, get a home. That was it. If I can get a home for my family, I have accomplished a major goal. Am I correct? I'm talking about black folks in particular. That was it. Then what happened when we accomplished that goal, we stopped growing. I've got it. I'm going to burn the mortgage. And we all know that term. Now, the home is probably the greatest or the biggest asset that most black people will ever own. That's the biggest asset they're going to ever own. And they're so proud until, hey, my mortgage is burnt. We've heard that term, and some of us may have done it. We stop growing. That's natural growth. That's as far as it's going. And of course, we now, those of us that begin to see further, begin to understand the purpose of that asset is to use. Leverage that asset and get more and get more and get more and more. Never mind the burning of this mortgage. I mean, if you, even rich people, I wouldn't say if you're rich, because rich people don't burn no mortgage. They leverage that asset and they move on. One of the things that just recently hit me, because I'm selling some property, is that what am I holding on to this for? And I've got another place to live. That's what the property was for in the beginning. To use it when I needed it. Okay? Why do one want to hold on to this? Now, when you're young, you're raising your family, that's one thing. But later on, what does two people, when all the kids are going away to college, out of the house or wherever, why does two people need to live in a great big house and pay the heavy oil bills in New York and other kinds of stuff? Just think about it. Now, if you're filthy rich and that's all you want to do, but it doesn't make a lot of sense. White folks, they don't do that. You leverage that stuff, okay? And you move on to another level, because just doing this is not going to bring you anything. That's natural growth. Now, let's take a look at it in the spirit realm. And by now, some of you have taken a look at this, okay? The spirit realm says exactly what we were talking about. We're going to keep moving. The first house is merely a stepping stone to the second, the third, the fourth, the fifth, and then to bigger things, to your business. Mortgage your house and open your business. A lot of us say, oh my goodness, I don't want to risk my house. Well, we all know if you're not going to take any risk, you're not going anywhere. You're back in the natural again. But if you're going to do it from a spiritual perspective, which is where your growth is not in the natural, brothers and sisters, it's in the spiritual. Then you leverage that. I was talking to a good friend of mine recently, last couple of days, and she was telling me, hey, I think I'm going to get rid of this house and I'm going to Florida. I'm going to do something else. Begin to make sense. It begins to, but that's a spiritual growth process. I'm just going to read this briefly because you've read it. We talked about, let's just read this, what true success means. When success is truly understood, it operates on a spiritual level. It is seen as a profession and realization of worthwhile purpose. You continue to grow and develop in all aspects. On a spiritual level, success is the continuous unfolding of your purpose and destiny. True success is the progressive, continuous, uplifting effort of attaining your goals and realizing your vision. This guides you to your worthwhile purpose in life. Now, this was written by a brother by the name of Herbert Harris. Herbert Harris also has a book out on universal laws and principles, okay? But you begin to see that there's a difference. When we stop the growth process, we're still in the natural. And believe me, I understand it, so I'm not standing before you being critical to say we've done so much wrong. That's not what I'm saying. But I'm saying we now have to take this growth process to another level. Because you're going to start right there with that house. And then at some point, mom and dad says, well, I'm saving the house for my child. That's a nice thought. But a lot of times, when that you give the house to the child and they sell it too. They'll let that house go in a minute. Okay? You take care of that business. Sure, you want to leave a legacy for your children, but I'm suggesting to you that you want to leave business for your children. Business. We don't have legacy in business in our community. I mean, I've recently seen that with a good friend of mine that I know. Dad was one of the first black CPAs around. Office on Fulton Street, had a CPA firm since 1962. 1962. 2 boys. Both of the boys went away to college, went to University of Virginia, one of the fine schools in the country, out of that CPA firm. Both of them accountants. The father died a while back. The business is dead. The business is dead. We don't have legacy businesses, just like we don't have legacy income. And something's wrong with that. So what do we do about this? How are we going to change this? We've got to understand, and what I put on paper are merely a few of some universal laws and principles, but we're going to talk about a few of them because we don't have the time to go through all of them, but you'll begin to see my point in what we're talking about. Let me just first say this. All of us in here are perhaps familiar with what just happened in Georgia with Cynthia McKinney. Am I correct? We all know what went down in Georgia with Cynthia McKinney. We all perhaps know her record compared to her opponent's record. Cynthia McKinney was rated, just to give you a little background, and not by her, 260-something in terms of effectiveness out of 435 members of the House of Representatives. All over the country, 260-something, she came out about half. She was rated the #1 effective legislator out of the state of Georgia completely, be they the 2 senators or the other representatives. Head of the field. Brought so much money into the state, into her district, until they couldn't even spend it. Now, of course, they didn't like Cynthia because what? She wasn't talking about the same kind of stuff they're talking about. As they say, her politics was non-traditional. So what happened? And if we saw the debates and we saw what happened in the record of the opponent, we saw that, he wasn't anywhere near with all kinds of stuff about criminality and all kinds of things, yet he defeated her. Ladies and gents, I want to tell you that wasn't about politics, that was about economics. Your politics is built upon your economic foundation, or you're not going to stay in power. Or you're going to wind up being like most of our politicians are in New York, ineffective, and do what somebody else tells them to do instead of what you tell them to do. Because what will they tell you? Well, I got my money from downtown. I'm not making excuses for them, but that's the real deal. I got my money from downtown. I don't owe you no allegiance. Yeah, but you represent an entire black district. So you do. Morally and ethically, they do. I have no question about it. But they'll stand right in your face and say, that's not where the money came from. The money came from downtown. So what do? We don't have anyone to represent us. We don't have any power behind our politics. Come on, we all know, we've studied in 1866 and whatever, we had a black senator from South Carolina and all of this stuff, and the question becomes, why didn't that perpetuate itself? It didn't perpetuate itself. Why? It didn't perpetuate itself because we didn't have any economics behind it. They let the brother in and they put him out. Okay? And we're still running around trying to say our politics is first. Our politics has to play off of it. When the guys and the ladies in the Senate in this country and the House, when you see that they vote for who? They vote for the corporations, right? They vote on the side of established corporations. They don't vote on our side. They vote for corporate America. Corporate America runs it, not them. Therefore, when they leave office, they go work for one of those major companies as basically a lobbyist. Most of them go right back in Congress and lobby for that corporation. That's where the power is, back at that corporation. The power is not there. They're merely lobbyists. Even in Congress, they are merely lobbyists. That's what they are. More than they are anything else, because they don't represent us. Now, of course, in the white community puts a lot more pressure on theirs. But of course, they're putting dollars in their pocket too, because they own corporate America. So we've got to understand what this whole business is all about. It's about building. Let's take a look at some of our laws and principles and talk about some of them. But we need to understand this. As we teach this, we need to understand this more and more. I mean, this whole room, in my opinion, should be packed. But you see, we've got other things to do other than learn how to build a business. You know, we out there, and then we'll start complaining, well, I don't have any money, and nobody helps me. Yeah, we understand it takes money to build a business, but when are you going to get started? Well, the reason I don't start is because I don't have money. That's not the reason you didn't start. You're scared. And you don't step out on the very first one of these laws that we have here. You don't step out in faith. Let's take a look at it. You want to play the game, but you want to play the game in safety. You know, it's like a brother told me that was working for Citibank years back when I was pushing to get into the Black United Fund, into the payroll deduction market at Citibank. So the brother came to me who worked for Citibank, and he said to me, he said, Kermit, he says, hey man, I really believe I can get you into Citibank. We can get Buffney into Citibank. I said, right on, bro. That's what I want to hear. You just tell me what you want me to do, and we're there. He said, well, you got to guarantee me that nobody's going to get fired. Well, you know, that ended the discussion. How do I guarantee you that? However, if you all are sticking together, no one will get fired. Now, I said, brother, if I could guarantee you that no one would get fired, I wouldn't need you. Safety. Now, I understand needing our jobs. Folks, please don't get me wrong to say I'm talking about, you know, people shouldn't work. That's not what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying. It's got to go beyond that. Because one of the things we use all the time, and you need to remember this one if you don't know, I have a little acronym for JOB. J-O-B. It's just over broke. And that's as far as we're going with the job. We're going to pay the bills and struggle to pay the bills and put the children through college, but we're just over broke. That's what a job is. Instead of doing more and more about, let's talk about business, family. Let's talk about how we're going to build a legacy, family. Let's talk about what you're going to do when you return from college. What are you going to do? I don't want to dampen anyone's parade, but it's getting to the point when I'm looking around, and I do seem to predict this stuff pretty good, that for many of our children, you know, when they get out of college, it's going to be very interesting to see where they're going. The jobs are leaving the country, folks. Some of you in here in the technology industry, and probably all of you have some sort of email, particularly, I know if you got AOL and you called to talk to somebody, you talk to somebody in India. Any of you ever tried, you know, getting service on AOL? They're not here. You're talking to somebody, India, Pakistan, you're talking to somebody someplace else. But we're paying the AOL company for the service. Now, and that continues. That's not getting any better. So what are we going to do? How are we going to make this happen? There's something called faith. We define it as the substance of, that's a law. That's a universal law, universal spiritual law. The substance of things hoped for, the evidence of things not seen. Faith. It's impossible. Now, so everybody is clear. You've noticed on this list that I have scripture that I reference and where to find it. Just so you're clear, and we're all clear, I don't care whether you're listening to Les Brown, Zig Ziglar, what's this guy, Tony Roberts. Now they may not, well, Les will tell you, they may not want to tell you, but guess what? They got all their basis from scripture. They're not that brilliant that they made this stuff up. They just figured out a way to present it. And they don't tell you they got it from scripture. And if you read the Quran or if you read the Torah, they may say it differently, but they're all saying the same thing. They say the same thing. Okay? Because you're going to use faith if you're going to get anything. Unfortunately for us, now this does not necessarily apply to all whites, because whites don't necessarily, a lot of them born with a silver spoon or the gold spoon or whatever spoon we want to call it. They're born, they have money. The Elliot Spitzers of the world that we know of. Daddy rich, he can go into politics. You know, as a few weeks ago, those of you were here that Dr. Mack explained how he got this money. Daddy gave him 6 major apartment buildings, and he sold them and got money to run. How many of us, and this is down on the south side of Central Park, or the south side of Central Park. How many of us got parents that can do that? Probably none of us in this room. So we've got to start with something else. So we start with faith. You want to build a business? Start the business. Doesn't have anything to do with whether you have money or not. Start writing it down. The first thing you want to do is put down on paper what it is that you want to do. Start doing some kind of plan. And I haven't even gotten to the stage where I'm talking about a business plan, okay? I'm just talking about writing it. When you begin to write, folks, the Creator begins to pour out of you creativity. Have any of you noticed that? You're thinking about it, but once you start writing it, or typing it, or whatever you do in word processing, all kinds of stuff start coming out. But as long as you sit there thinking about it, nothing comes out. Make sense? So you begin to write. So what is happening? The Creator is now, God is now bringing things out of you and giving you direction and showing you the way to go. So if you're going to build business, you're going to build it with the Creator bringing things out of you. You're not going to build it just because you thought of it, and you don't get it all at the same time. It doesn't mean you're going to get your entire business laid out before you. That doesn't ordinarily happen. What happens is, as you are involved in directing your business and creating your business, and you're moving it, the Creator gives you more and more, piece by piece, piece by piece. That's why I don't let anything stop you when you begin to do this and you say, well, wait a minute now, I don't see the whole picture. Don't see the whole picture. Just go ahead and start the work. Start the work. Start the work. When I started the Black United Fund in 1979, the minute I got started, the biggest thing that impressed me was that, starting out was that I saw a way that black people could raise money, could have money without asking white folks for money. We could get in this payroll deduction market, okay? Now, I was naive because I thought that whites were going to welcome us in this payroll deduction market because they told us to bootstrap and we were going to build. We're not begging them anymore. I learned a major lesson. That wasn't true. But at the same time, as I began to push, more and more things God began to give me more and more vision. More and more things begin to happen. Here's how you do this. Here's what will happen if you do that. I didn't know all of this stuff starting out. I didn't know it. But every time I took an additional step, more and more came out, and more and more came out, and more and more came out. Now do this, do that. You know, build some affordable housing. Okay? Do some gut rehab. The interesting thing about it is, of course, most black people, all they saw was affordable housing, which was good. Don't misunderstand me. Man, I saw economics. I saw building these buildings as a leverage. Okay? I saw something else. If you talk to people now, what will they tell you about oh, Mr. Eady did over 400 units and put in over 400 families in affordable housing. And you know, that's good. I saw far beyond that. Wasn't the 400 units I was as interested in? I was interested in leveraging those 400 units into something else. So that when you needed money and you needed money, we could have that money to put into your business. That's what it was about. We put the money into, hey, you come up, I need X number, I need $1 million to start my company. Here's the $1 million. Every other ethnic group in this country seem to have a source where they can get dollars. We don't. That's what we were doing. But you do this based on faith. You got to take a look at that and says, well, now where's my faith? You know, yeah, it may be a little uncomfortable. We're not saying it won't be. Anytime you step out into something, you know, it's like, well, I was about to compare it to getting married, but that's probably not true because we're so much in love when we get married, we don't think anything can go wrong. I'm not going to say any more about that. But, you know, oh, nothing, nobody can tell you anything, okay? Of course, we learn a little bit down the road, you know. We learn a little. I'm not saying you got to break up. I'm just saying we do learn that it wasn't the same thing it was on the wedding day, okay? Everybody's going to learn that one. So young folks, just remember that. It will not be the same as it was on the wedding day down the road. All right? Now, that don't mean you got to break up. I'm not saying that and all of that. But understand, but you're stepping out on faith all the time. You're using your faith, and you're putting that faith out there. Now, there's certain things that'll stop that faith from working. And it's going to tie into something else we're going to talk about, unforgiveness. That's why I tell you, I can't teach you all in one session, but I want you to begin to get that. Unforgiveness will stop the faith growth. So, if you did me something that I believe was wrong, whether you ever apologize or not, I have to forgive you. I have to forgive you. And you find out when you do the forgiving, it frees you. The forgiving is not about him. The forgiving is about freeing me up. Because as long as I'm angry with him, it hampers my creativity. It don't happen. I'm angry all the time. I can't grow. So we got to learn certain things that don't stop your faith. Let's just take another look at a few more. One of the things, let's take a look at the law of command. Let's just take a quick look. In our institute, folks, we go into these in much, much more detail. Okay? And I'll tell you in a minute when we say, okay, we understand that. Well, how do we put this into practice? We'll talk about that in a minute. Thou shalt decree a thing and it shall be established. Okay? If anyone say, go down to this mountain, go throw yourself in the sea, and does not doubt in his heart, but believe whatsoever he saith shall come to pass, he will have what he says. Now, that's interesting stuff. You cannot confess that I'm going to have $1 million in the next 6 months. And then the next time I talk to you or anyone speaks to you, and you then turn around and say, well, I don't know, I'm trying. I may not get it. You just stopped it. It's not about that. It's like a cold, right? And I want everyone to put this one in practice. Don't say anymore just because you sneeze, you think you're catching a cold. Stop that one. Everybody in here can stop that one. Don't confess that. And if anyone says to you that, oh, you must be catching a cold, you know what you do? You tell them, not me. Don't lay that here. I don't receive it. Because you don't have to receive that stuff. When you receive it, you got your cold. You got your cold. And you practice this kind of thing. If you don't want to have these bad effects coming on you, don't confess any of them. Yes, it may come in here, but for God's sake, don't let it come out here. You can't stop certain things necessarily all the time from coming in here, but don't repeat it. Don't let it come out. You know, there's a scripture in the book of Proverbs that says what? Life and death is in the power of the tongue. Isn't that interesting? In the tongue, what you confess is what you're going to bring back. So when you tell certain things to get out of your life, and you keep doing it over and over again, you get it down in your spirit. And it becomes automatic. Give you an example. Probably most of you, if not all of you in here, drive. Am I correct? And if not, if you're not driving now, you're going to drive at some point. Driving a car, not even your car, is in your spirit. You don't even have to think about it. You walk out to your car, you turn the switch on, you start the car, and you just start, you do your look around. But that's an automatic thing now. Am I correct? That's in your spirit. That works. And there are other things that you do. It's working all the time. You get in that car, you turn it on, boom, you're gone. You don't get in the car and wonder whether I forgot how to drive. You're driving. You're moving. You're doing what you do. Do the same thing with this. Now, how do we get that? There are three ways to the spirit. The eye gate, the ear gate, and the mouth. And this one is usually what's coming out. That's it. You read it, it goes in here, you hear it, you repeat it over and over and over again until it gets down in your spirit and it becomes automatic. And then when you say you're going to have your $1 million in 6 months, the $1 million is there in 6 months. Now, that requires some sacrifice on our part. It's on our part that we have our sacrifice. We got to do this. We got work to do. We can't just say, oh, you know, I asked the Creator for $1 million. We'll see what He does. Okay? He's not going to do anything. You've got something to do, then the Creator has something to do. We all understand am I making any sense? Okay? Because we must put this stuff into practice all the time. Over and over and over again, instead of saying, wow, this is what I am, this is what I do, this is what I'm not going to do. And just leaving it alone. You've got to confess this stuff over and over again. Over and over again. Your creativity begins to flow. It's just like, and write it down. If you really want to get into it, find some time every day and start writing what you're confessing every single day. And if you happen to, while you're learning, if you happen to say something that's negative, cross it out and get right back on track again. Don't stay with it and say, oh, I didn't mean nothing by it. It has nothing to do with you didn't mean anything. Nothing to do with that at all. It has something to do with what you're saying and what you're doing every day of your life. Let's talk a little bit about fear, one of the principles. Scripture in the book of Isaiah, I think it's, no, not Isaiah, Timothy. I don't know whether we have that there, but I'm going to talk a little bit about it because this is what's killing us. This fear stuff. I think it's 2 Timothy, 1st chapter, 7th verse. Write that down. If not, you begin to look for this stuff. It says, God didn't give us a spirit of fear, but one of power, love, and a sound mind. Did you guys hear that? I'll say it again. God didn't give us a spirit of fear, but one of power, love, and a sound mind. Well, If the Creator didn't give you a spirit of fear, you don't have any business having one. And of course, some people say, yeah, but I can't help it. Oh, yes, you can. You have no business having fear. Fear and faith doesn't go live in the same house. So now we just finished talking about faith. If you got fear, it's going to kill your faith. They don't work together, folks. And the more fear you have, the less and less chances of what you want with your faith to happen. It's not going to happen. You've got to leave that alone. And people say, but what? Fear is not of you. Fear is what we like to say, fear is of the devil. It's not of God. Because he just said in that scripture, he didn't give you a spirit of fear. These are laws and principles that we're talking about. Now you're talking about some serious empowerment strategies. Because if you want something to happen in your business, again, what? You're stepping on faith, then you're getting rid of the fear. If you allow the fear to come in, you're going to begin to kill your faith. You've got to stop it. You've got to stop it. What fear will paralyze you. And I think we all know that. Because at some point in all of our lives, we've had some kind of fear about something. You can't think straight. You can't do anything right. It just takes you out. So you got to leave that fear alone. You keep confessing. I don't have a spirit of fear. I have a spirit of power. I don't have a spirit of fear. I have a spirit of power. Love and a sound mind. Put it all together. That's the reason I gave you these. I gave you these so you can go home, look them up, and study them and see what they're, not just put them out there. Because this is what we must live by. And there are more. So that you'll begin to see what is happening and who we are. No fear. I say this to you real truthfully. When I got attacked by the Attorney General, one of the things I didn't have was fear. Now, I still got my problems. Don't misunderstand me. I teach this stuff. So I'm not standing before you to tell you that I'm free of everything. That's a lie. But I've learned to master a few things. Like I don't have colds and flus and that kind of stuff, okay? Don't even tell me that. I'm going to be honest with you. I've never had the flu. And I don't remember if I've ever had a cold. Now, I've sneezed, you know, and I've sneezed around some people and say, oh, you catching? And I say, shut up. I'm not catching anything. And I leave it be. And it's gone. Now, I have not in any way mastered all the other stuff, you know, because if I'd mastered all the stuff about how to get this prosperity thing going, you know, we'd all have a whole lot of money. I'm working on that one, though. That one's here. Very soon now. Okay? But you put this stuff into action. Now, because remember, there's also scripture that tells you faith without works is no good. So you got to start the working while you're exercising your faith. Now, people will say, well, yeah, but what if I'm going in the wrong direction? The Creator will help you get back on track, but do something. Don't just sit there and say, okay, now, Kermit Eady told me to just exercise this faith and everything will be all right. That's not what I said. Put some action. Get the verb going on in your life, you know. Put some action behind that faith. And stand on it, and it's going to get tough. And it's going to be tough and tough and tough and tough. But just stand on it. Don't let the fear come in to take it away from you. Because if that fear comes in, it's going to wipe you out. It's going to take you out. And that's something that most of us, back to what I was talking about, that's something that most of us have that we don't seem to be able to turn loose. Two things, forgiveness and fear. We don't want to forgive. Now, I'm not telling you when you forgive to put your head back in the guillotine again. I'm not telling you that now. But you forgive and you keep on going. And you get rid of that fear because you can't do nothing with that. You cannot operate in any great way because you've got fear going on in your life. Leave the fear alone. when we operating with that, when we look at that, I shared this a couple of weeks ago, and for those of you that weren't here, some of you were, I'm going to share this again. I was on Imhotep Gary Bird's show about, 3 weeks ago or so, make a long story short, and I was talking about a lot of the same things we're talking about. Only thing, Imhotep was dealing with this article that I had written, and I raised the question in the article about, since we knew, as we said earlier, that we were brought to this country for the only purpose was to build an economy for whites, with capitalism being the ideology. Why is it we don't focus on an economy when that's what they brought us here for? We built theirs and then we won't build ours, okay? And I didn't answer the question, so later on, after we've been talking about an hour, Imhotep says, Kermit, before I go to break, what is your take on this? Why is it we don't deal with it? Why is we always dealing with political issues and social issues? And we know they're important, but why not economics first? And I said, fair. And then, Imhotep says, that's exactly what I'm saying. He went to the break. He came back off the break, and he said, now I want everybody to listen to this. He said, all of us have heard Martin Luther King talk about, I've been to the mountaintop. And of course, I've heard it. Probably every one of you in this room heard the mountaintop. That was the speech he made in Memphis, the last speech when he was organizing the sanitation workers. All we heard was, I've been to the mountaintop. What we did not know, that was his closing. Just like the I Have a Dream speech was the closing. That wasn't the speech. That was the closing. Okay? So all we heard was that. Well, Imhotep began to play a segment of the speech that took place about a minute or so before he went into I've been to the mountaintop. And some of you in this room have now heard it. And if you haven't, Kamal here may have some copies. Okay? You need to hear this. He started out by laying out an agenda. He said, we're going to withhold our economics from these corporations. And the first corporation he named was Coca-Cola. Now, the brother started naming corporations. There's one thing when most of us talk about, we'll always say we need to do something and we need to, but they never put a name out there. The brother started naming, and he talked about taking your money, and I don't know whether was it Wonder Bread or Seal Test. He was naming them. Okay? He started dealing with economics. He was dealing with an economic agenda. He moved into, and I'd never heard this before. Okay? Interestingly, the next day he was dead. I ran into a brother a couple of weeks ago who said, I was in Las Vegas with them when the speech was written. He said, I was there. So they knew what Martin was going to bring to the table in Memphis. Need I say more? But what happened? If we notice, none of his lieutenants picked up that agenda. Interesting, isn't it? How many of you had heard this before I'm mentioning, unless you'd heard Gary Bird? Anyone in here heard this before? No. But I know some of you have already heard the speech by now. So when I'm talking to Imhotep the Nation, Kermit, nobody's playing that. Nobody's going to play that. Folks, understand the power of what we're talking about. When we talk about economics, understand what economics is all about. Understand what we've got to do. Because mainly right now, what I'm telling all of us is we've got to put our businesses in the spiritual realm and take it out of the natural realm so that it cannot be attacked. I hope it's not too heavy, but understand what we're saying. Your business must be placed in the spiritual realm. And for those of you that are going to school and going to college, do the same thing every day of your life. You use these same principles. That's your business going to school. Your business may not be the same as my business or someone else's business. Your business is going to school. And the same principles apply to you going to school. So I don't want anyone leaving there saying, well, he wasn't talking about me. He was just talking about people who want to go into business. Oh, no, no, no. That is your business. Take your studies on a spiritual level. It is far more than just, some of the things I did in college. And some of you memorized some stuff just to pass. And I struck a chord on that one, right? Memorize enough just to pass, okay? It's far beyond that. So you've got to move that into a spiritual realm and let that then take over, and you will begin to find that your studies are a lot easier. It's a whole lot easier because now it's down in your spirit. And you begin to, oh man, by the time you take the test and all of this stuff is flowing out of you. Even when you're memorizing, if you remember, if you really do some serious memorizing, it gets in your spirit and you never forget it. I'm going to give you an example that happened to me. The courses we take in colleges, and there's a set of courses they call the humanities. And in the humanities, you begin to study things like, Michelangelo and, this guy painting this chapel, and all this stuff, right? And of course, being black, you begin to look at that while you're studying, and you begin to say, now what good is me reading about Michelangelo painting some chapel? Okay? So you don't pay much attention to that. And you memorize enough of that to get by. Okay? Most of us. There are people who major in that stuff that look like us, but most of us memorize that stuff and move on. The Iliad and the Odyssey and all this kind of stuff, right? Well, when I've graduated from college, I think it was about a year and a half after I graduated from college, four of us, we went to Europe. And that time they had this, just so you'll know, they had this Europe on $5 a day. And some of you remember that. I did that $5 a day thing, right? Had a lot of fun. Anyway, what I'm getting at is, I'm sitting there in the Sistine Chapel, okay, with Michelangelo painted. And I sat there with a guidebook in my hand. And I started reading this stuff and looking at this stuff while I was sitting there. Do you know I remembered more from reading that guidebook in 1 hour than I remembered from the whole course? I can tell you far more about who this Michelangelo guy was and what this chapel was all about before I memorized this stuff and I left. But I was sitting there looking, the eye gate was open, the ear gate was open, and suddenly I'm interested in it. It got down in my spirit. I remember stuff that I didn't even remember just getting out of there a year before. Okay? So when we begin to deal with this, we begin to deal with all of these kinds of things. Now let's do one more of the laws, okay? And then I'm going to wrap this up because we pulled out Milton. I just got a message. He's on his way, and he was going to talk to you for a few minutes. If you look at them, let's just, before I deal with one more, because in our institute we deal with all. We see the law of sowing and reaping, and I think we begin to understand that. What you put out there is what you're going to get back. Now, you sow that out of here, you start condemning and you start doing this and you start speaking negative about yourself, it's coming right back to you. Okay? So you don't want to get involved in that. The law of thought, as the scripture says, as a man thinketh, so is he. You what you think. Okay? Let's turn over to the next page. The law of change. Be not conformed to this world, but be you transformed by the renewing of your mind. Now, while we're on that, let's just take a quick look again at look in the back of this one, at 3 basic principles of success when we talk about change and all of this kind of stuff, okay? What are we saying? Be consistent. Get away from negative people. Lord knows, stay away from them. I mean, you love your mom and your dad and you respect them always, but if they're coming up negative, just quietly move aside. Okay? Be willing to change your life completely. You see, there's a saying that we call, what is it we call, the height of insanity? You continue to do the same thing over and over again, and you expect different results. That's insane. We don't want to change. Well, I've been this way all my life. You know, I'm going to stay this way until the day I die. Now, isn't that sad? That you're going to stay the same way until the day you die. That's sad. You want to grow, folks. You don't want to stay the same way. So when we talk about that, you know, be willing to change. When we're teaching this, that's what we're talking about. Change, change, change all the time, man. That's how we grow. That's what we do. So when we start talking about the universal laws and stuff, we don't know them. We start working them in our lives. We start putting them together in our lives. The laws of relationship. The law of forgiveness we talked about. And of course, the law of love. The law of action. Do it. Put the verb, make that verb in your life something that you can live with. Something that you're going to be a part of all the time. In our institute, we teach this and much more. We go over and over and over and over again in teaching these laws and these principles. You need to know them. You need to be a part of them. And now for those who want to do business, this is it. But for those who are going to school or any other walk of life, just your everyday life, this is what you live by. And you're going to have obstacles, you're going to have trials, things are going to come against you, it's going to try to stop you, but you keep pressing them all the time until they become like driving that car, okay? It's almost as automatic like, you know, when you go to bed at night and you get up in the morning, one of the first things most of us do, we go running to the bathroom. That's automatic. Why is it we run to the bathroom when we wake up in the morning and we don't, you know, what's that about? Isn't that interesting? Most of us, we run into the bathroom. Well, it's something that went on. Okay? We have certain habits that we've developed. That's become a part of our spirit. That's become a part of us. But when you begin to confess this stuff, the Creator begins to bring it out of you more and more and more and more. And this is what you're going to live by. So keep it always positive. Keep everything in your life. Don't let anybody get you to say negative things about your own growth and development. And don't you say them. If you slip, just cross it out and say, nope, didn't mean that. And get right back in sync again. Because this is what's going to cause you to grow and what's going to cause you to develop. As we teach this in the Institute, and there's much more that we teach, but we're saying to brothers and sisters very clearly, if you want to do business, deal with this. Because when your business is in the natural realm all the time, it is so easy for outside forces to destroy it because they have much more money than you. They have much more power than you. And unfortunately, it appears the condition that we're in, we're not coming to your rescue when you get attacked. So you want to put that business where it cannot be destroyed. That's where the Creator is. So you want to put it on a spiritual level. You can't keep the business just, you know, on a natural level. You build up to a certain level and boom, then here comes the attack. You see, it's all right in this country for us to build straight up. One of us. Because the bottom line is what happens is they get all the money back anyway because you still got to go to them for goods and services. Because I can't come to you because you didn't build anything. And you can't come to me because I didn't build anything. So they'll let you do that. But when we start talking about building as a collective, folks get scared. The force is coming out. So that's why this stuff becomes so important. It becomes important, important, important. And we need to put it in practice all the time. So I'm going to close with that, and I'm going to leave you with that. And, you know, for those of you that are interested in more about our seminar series, and, you know, we'll be doing more. One is going to be held right here, and one we do in Manhattan. Okay? But I want you to just let people know what you've heard today if you think it's of any benefit to you. Because our people are in trouble. We're in trouble. And I wonder, you know, I mean, not taking sides one way or another, but my goodness, everybody's fighting. The Hezbollah fighting, the Lebanese, I mean, everybody fights but us. We don't fight with guns and we don't fight without guns. And I'm not advocating, fighting with guns, but something's wrong with this thinking. Something's wrong with this. Brothers and sisters, we've got to make some changes, and rapid changes. We have children that we've got to see what's going to happen to them. We're not going to be here and we're going to have grandchildren. What's going to happen to them? Where are they going? What are they going to do? See, I don't want to bring you gloom and doom and gloom, as they says, but my goodness, I know it's coming down. Nobody can convince me otherwise. The whole system's coming, and since we're already on the bottom, you can imagine what's going to happen to us unless we begin to see the opportunity to move up. And the opportunity is there. The opportunity is there. Other ethnic groups are doing it, and you all see it. You're just looking around. You're in the neighborhood. They're in your neighborhood. I mean, I tell a little thing about, I'm from South Carolina. I was born in the country, I mean, where I was born, they still got a dirt road. Not a log cabin, but a dirt road, okay? They still have a dirt road. I go out in the country, where I came from, and the Chinese out in the woods selling chicken wings. Can y'all imagine in the woods, and the Chinese in the woods, selling on the dirt road, selling chicken wings? Now, we were supposed to be the best chicken cookers on the planet, right? All gone. All gone. I'm just trying to get you to think, because if we can get one or two people in this room, and our young folks, when they go to college, begin to see beyond, what am I going to look like? And I'm not saying anything is wrong at all with going to work for corporations or whatever agencies you're going to, but see beyond that. Go there, develop your skills, and said, later on, I'm going to start my own business. If it's making dresses, that's fine. Start your own business. And don't let anybody tell you, well, you can't make any money in that field or this field because so-and-so is already there. That's not true. Your creativity goes to work, and it'll be quite different from who so-and-so is. They're not the same, never is. Other than that, we would only have one singer. We got thousands of singers, and they all come out different. So don't get stopped because, well, somebody already got this company named so-and-so, and they're doing this, and that's what I want to do. Start your company, folks. Let the Creator take you through your process. Start your company. Don't stop. Don't ever stop. That's something, too, you don't want to ever do. That's a law. God honors diligence. Don't stop anything you're doing. Ladies and gentlemen, I appreciate you being here. I thank you for being here. And if we want to at some point, we'll entertain a few questions. But I hope this has been beneficial. And I hope you'll spread the word as to what went down here today. It's too bad more of us didn't see, instead of going to the beach, take a little bit of time to try to understand how to live. I talk about it in a business framework, but it's just plain how to live every single day. Because I'm going to tell you this, my last comment. So many people have asked me, those of you here that know my history, I've had preachers to ask me why I didn't shoot somebody. Started a business, started Buff with 8,000, built it into over 100 million in assets, and then someone just destroyed it. Now, admittedly, I'm not telling you it didn't work on this. But dealing with a lot of this is what stopped me from being in jail. Because one preacher told me, which I found reprehensible, but he said it. He said, I would negotiate with the devil. If I was in your shoes, he said, I would have negotiated with the devil himself. Well, see, excuse my language, I ain't dealing with the devil. No matter what happens. There's some things you're going to put some brakes on and said, I'm not going to do. So all I'm sharing with you is let's stop this stuff. You've got a job to do. Start standing. Start standing. All of you in here, probably a lot of you like Donnie McClurkin. You know, one of my favorites when he says, stand, stand. Because there's still some people out here like you and like me that will come and work with you. There are a whole lot of us will run from you, but let them run. Everybody's not going to run. But we've got to stand, and we've got to say we're not taking it anymore. So that's why I didn't go out and shoot anybody. Now, there was a time in my life when I would have, before I started dealing with this stuff. Oh, I would have. All of you been saying, and pretty soon you would have forgotten. Yeah, that Kermit Eady went and killed somebody. He's in jail. Ain't too many of you coming to see me either. Okay? But if I went to jail, I couldn't do what the Creator taught me, what God told me to do. And that's to teach this. And I'm going to keep on teaching it. We do have a policy in the Institute. When you come in once, you can come back as many times as you want. Never cost you another penny. You're in for life. You know, and as we bring in new speakers, even if you only want to come to hear the new business people speak or whatever, you're welcome to come or go through it all over again. Because obviously we're continuing to study and continuing to learn and continuing to get revelation knowledge from God. So, you know, it's always open to you. The classes, we've been doing the classes I've been doing from 7 to 10 for 15 hours, about 6 weeks. And I mean, we take a little break in there and we bring in speakers as well as the teaching that I'm going to be doing and Adrian will be doing and Jay will be doing some teaching on technology because we try to give you a full service curriculum. We start off with the laws and the principles because you need to know that stuff. You need to know what the spirit, soul, and body is all about because most people don't even know that you are a spirit, you have a soul, and you live in a body. To most people, that's foreign. So we're getting you to understand all of this about you in terms of your spirit being, in terms of who you are, as the sister pointed out, you know, I mean, where we came from, even in the natural and in the spirit world. And then we bring in black business people who buttress the stuff we are teaching. One of the reasons we wanted Milton here, and he's going to share just a few minutes, is he's got some stuff to tell you that when he laid out, when he came into our institute and started laying out, and he focused and didn't know it, on how he had to forgive somebody, and how heavy that was, and how he didn't want to forgive because of what this person had done. But guess what? This person has caused his business, that's his best friend now, and caused his business to flourish. And the folks in the class was just looking around, huh? Well, yeah, but you were just teaching us about that. Your God should look like you. Nothing wrong with that. That's what it should be. So we now have got to learn more and more that, hey, this cannot be. Our God look like us. His God can look like him, and his God can, or her God can look, whatever. He's omnipotent, he's omniscient, he's omnipresent. So he can be all things to all people. We can't. Okay? We can't. So when we begin to understand this stuff, then you're really talking about growth and development. Because we don't have the money to start businesses and start institutions like they do without knowing any of this. They got money. They're born with these silver and these gold spoons in their mouths. So we've got to do it. And the way we do it, though, when we do it this way and we do it right, it'll never leave you. It'll never leave you. Okay? Because the Creator will continue to uphold you all the time when we do business His way. And this is something we've got to begin to learn more and more. You see, it is sad, it is very sad for many of us when we begin to look at God as something that white folks created. You know, a lot of us look at it and say, that's because we don't study. Well, white folks ain't created God. There's a God. You know what I mean? a creator, whatever term, they're there. I mean, that person, that's a person. Okay, that's not a spook. It's a spirit, but it's a person. So, we've got to begin to understand more and more, because other than that, we ain't going down, we're down. It's something Cynthia McKinney said to me that all of you know, but I'll never forget it, the way she said it. And we were talking, I don't know, about 3 o'clock one morning. We were sitting over in Astoria Boulevard at the Buccaneer, everybody know what the Buccaneer. And we were having breakfast because I was taking her to the airport, right? So we just the two of us were talking. We talked for hours, and we were talking about the enemy within. And Cynthia said to me, she said, Kermit, let me tell you something. She said, we are the only people on the face of this earth that allow our enemy within to grow and flourish among us. She said Winnie Mandela even gave him the necktie. What is it, necklace or the necktie?
Rubber necklace.
The rubber necklace? What? She said, well, we're the only ones that tolerate this stuff. And, she's got a point there. She said, people don't, we don't just turn each other in, we go lie on each other. Okay? Much less work together. And, and I think a whole lot of that, in my opinion, has to do with a lot of what we're talking about here. They don't understand about who they are spiritually and how to use their spiritual laws and how to use any of this. They don't even understand. They want to say, a lot of us want to say, oh, there ain't no kind of God, there ain't no kind. I mean, we get off into so much stuff. It was far, in my opinion, it was far better when I grew up in the segregated South than what I have now. Far better.
You were educated.
I was educated. That is absolutely correct. I mean, there was no comparison. The teachers taught, and they made sure we understood that we had to be better than those white kids. And we got the leftover books, the whole 9 yards. And they didn't tell us we were, God made us better. We had to be better in terms of our academics and the whole thing. We were taught. Amen. Amen. We have accountants that come in so you can talk about how to set up your business. We have accounting. We have marketing. Okay, we're going to do leadership. All of these areas, technology, and that's something Jay will be talking to us about a lot. How you want to set up, where's the best place perhaps to even get your equipment, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So you're going to get a full round spectrum, but we want to get you, and then you're going to have other black business people. Milton will be coming in, Pepe Sutton comes in, Bob Law comes in. Who else did we have while you were there? Gil Noble will be coming in. He don't do a lot about business, but it's good to hear what he has to say. Gil comes. Just a whole lot of people will be coming. And you'll begin to hear, John Beatty from the Cotton Club got a fantastic testimony about what he went through and what he's been doing. John always comes, okay? So the brother just lays it out just lays it out. But these are black, and the interesting thing about all these black business people, they didn't start with no money. They didn't have a whole lot of money, So, see, because our theory is, and more than a theory, that if some black people have been successful starting businesses without money, if that's true, and it is true, then there's something there to teach. Am I correct? And we know it's true. So now, how do we capture this and teach so that others can do the same thing? And we found out more and more as we begin to do the seminars that it became so prevalent that as more business people came in, we began to see, and they didn't even know it, that they were operating on these same laws and principles. You see, the law works, even if you're not a Christian, if you're not a Jew, if you're not anything, the law is going to work. The law is the law.
Universal.
It's universal. Okay? So we began to see so many people that come in, and they started with John Beatty when he came in. John came in at 7 o'clock, and they wouldn't let him go. It was after 10 before he left. We're going to be doing our first DVD very soon, so you'll all get notices. I hope Did we get everyone's name, address, phone number? You got the sign-in sheet? Make sure we all do the sign-in so we can be right back in contact with you, okay? Again, thank you for coming and God bless.